So you're working towards your master's social work and keep hearing everyone say, I'm getting my licensed clinical social worker like it's the golden ticket. But what exactly is the LCSW in Illinois? How many hours do you need? Who can supervise you? What's the deal with the new exam alternative law? And let's be real, how much does an LCSW actually make? Today, I'm giving you the complete Illinois LCSW roadmap, step by step from graduation to full clinical licensure, plus supervision, exam prep, cost, and real world pay ranges. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Jaimon, where we talk master of social work, mental health careers, grad school hacks, and real world social work. I'm Jaimon, a master of social work student at Aurora University and a mental health professional with Grow Community in Illinois. This is my master of social work week 26, about halfway through my program, and I'm already mapping out my LCSW game so I can hit the ground running right after graduation. Quick disclaimer, I'm not on the licensing board, so all of this information comes from the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. Always double check websites before applying because rules can change. What is the LCSW actually? LCSW stands for a licensed clinical social worker, and this in Illinois allows you to diagnose mental and behavioral disorders using the DSM-5, provide psychotherapy and counseling to individuals, couples, families, and groups, bill insurance independently under your own MPI numbers so you don't have to work with another agency. You can work in your own private practice, supervise other social workers and sign off on their hours that they may need, open a private practice or work independently without agency oversight. So the difference between that license and the licenses you get straight out of your social work grad school program is a social work grad school program. You know, you're a therapist, you're a licensed social worker. A licensed clinical social worker is one with more extensive experience. You have had these supervision hours. You have had, and then you take your exam and you pass that. And now you're held to a higher standard. When you get your initial licensure, being a licensed social worker, you're held to a higher standard. But once you get your licensed clinical social worker, even if you're working in an agency, you're held to a higher standard. The liability's straight on you. The liability's no longer on the agency. The liability's on you because you're a licensed clinical social worker at that point. So, it's the liability, but also allows you to do a lot more things. You're able to open up your own agency. You're able to build insurance on your own. You're able to provide all different types of therapeutic and therapy type of sessions with groups, families, and things like that. You're just able to do a lot more, and then also able to diagnose these mental and behavioral disorders with more accuracy. Why does the LCSW matter? Because you have career mobility, right? You can work in hospitals, community agencies, schools, VA systems, correctional settings, or even private practice. You can go around anywhere, and anywhere is willing to hire you with a licensed clinical social worker. You got that? They want you. They want you there because that's big time. Once you're a licensed clinical social worker, you have that leverage to work in your own private practice. So it's not as easy to find those with that credentials, and then also companies want that because it helps them with liability and just gives them more range on what they're able to do and things like that. Also, it leads to a way higher pay. In Illinois, licensed clinical social workers generally earn $70 to $95K per year, depending on the setting. Agency work often lands around $65 to $80K, and hospitals and private practice can often exceed $100K once you're paneled with insurance. So I am in agency work right now, and I'm gonna just be real with y'all. When I first started working for the agency, I was able to make up around $100K a year. Without the licensed clinical social worker. But now I see, there's been a lot of things going on. So now I'm kind of making about half of that, making about $50K a year. Agencies can kind of range depending on what agency you're working in. In private practice, you can easily exceed $100K because once you work in your own private practice, you're no longer getting, basically if you bill in insurance, you get a check cut. So let's say Medicaid pay $150 or $120 an hour for therapy. They reimburse that at that rate. If you go work at an agency, they might pay you $52 an hour. I'm just being real. That's what they gonna pay. They pay about $52 an hour, and the agency gonna keep the other $68. If you work in your own private practice, you keep that full $120, and you don't give none to an agency. Now, it's cool to work with an agency because you get that liability, you get that support, you get that help, But if you're in it for, really trying to be in control of what you're doing and you don't need that extra assistance from an agency, I would definitely recommend you doing the work on your own. Start your own agency as a licensed clinical social worker. Insurance billing. So most insurance panels, Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna, Medicaid, require the licensed clinical social worker credential to bill psychotherapy directly. There's certain services that you can't always bill as a social worker. You need to have that licensed clinical social worker. So it's good to be that, or it's good you have to have a licensed clinical social worker on your team at a mental health agency. So it's good to have them. Also, you can step more into the supervision and leadership role. You can mentor other students who are masters of social work, provide clinical supervision, or move in a clinical director role. So being able to lead teams and things like that, being able to give that guidance to others who are going through the same thing that you were once going through. And then also it gives you that entrepreneurship and freedom. If you ever want to start your own practice or hybrid online therapy brand, the licensed clinical social worker is what legally allows it. If you are an entrepreneur, if you want to build something, if you want to build a business, even if it's a nonprofit, if you're an entrepreneur, starting a private practice is your thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's your goal, that's your go-to. You know what I'm saying? That's what you should be aiming for. Here's kind of like just a quick overview of the Illinois licensed clinical social worker journey, right? So you graduate from a CSWE, accredited master of social work program. So you get your master's degree, you get that in all good. Then you get your licensed social worker. So you know what I'm saying? You go ahead and apply for your licensure. And then you accumulate 3,000 hours of post-master social worker clinical hours under supervision. So now you're getting your 3,000 hours working with an agency or interning with an agency. Most likely you're going to be working with an agency if you want to get 3,000 hours. I would not do that unpaid. I would definitely shoot for just getting a job where you can get this supervision under. And then you pass the ASWB clinical exam or qualify under the exam alternative law. There is a new exam alternative law I suggest you guys check out, which we will get into later. And then you submit everything to the FRP for approval, pay the fee, and boom, you're a licensed clinical social worker. So let's kind of get into those steps in a more detailed way. So before graduation, while you're still in school, take every assessment, diagnosis, and treatment planning course seriously. Those are exam content areas. Build relationships with licensed clinical social workers at your field sites. They might supervise you later. Right now, since I'm already building a relationship, I already work with the company that I work with. I'm already doing my internship. Post-grad, I'll be able to get my license. I'll be able to get my 3,000 hours through the same company I'm working with. So, definitely building those relationships with companies, with licensed clinical social workers, is going to help you down the road. Track your clinical exposure now, like your populations, interventions, and hours. Even if they don't count yet, it builds the habit. Attend NSAWIL or IDFRP webinars to stay ahead of the new rules and everything that's going on. New rules, regulations, things change. You want to be able to make sure that you're on top of everything and just know about everything that's changing, because the world changed, especially in social work that's ever so evolving. Now, step one is apply for your licensed social worker. So once you're master of social work, once you're done with that, first move is getting your licensed social work, your foundation license. Apply through the IDF or PR portal. Pay a $50 fee. It's only $50. You know what I'm saying? Have your school send official transcripts or the education form, and then register for the ASWB Master's exam, which is $230. So as of 2026, Illinois requires your licensed clinical social hours to be earned while you hold and licensed social worker or school social worker PEL. So you can't skip this step. You must get that initial licensure as soon as you graduate. Passing the licensed social worker exam helps you legally, keeps you legally covered and ready to count hours. So at that point, once you finish that exam, then you can start counting hours towards your licensed clinical social worker. Now, next step is to earn 3,000 clinical hours. So after you're licensed clinical social worker, you start collecting 3,000 hours post grad, right? That's cool. That's cool. You know what I'm saying? No complaints here. It must be supervised by a licensed clinical social worker or other qualified clinician. Must involve clinical social worker activities like therapy, assessments, diagnosis, treatment planning, crisis work, not just case notes or resource referrals, right? You really got to be in there doing the job, doing the work. Your supervision requirements, you need at least 100 hours of face-to-face supervision spread across 3,000 hours. Most do 1 hour per week. Your supervisor must verify your hours on IDF PR supervision verification form when you apply. Keep your own hour log, date, type of service, supervision notes in case of an audit, because they come, you know what I'm saying? You definitely want to make sure that you got everything cool, you got everything written down, you got everything just tracked in your own, you know what I'm saying? Because audits come, you know, you don't want to be one that they mess with. Some extra tips is during job interviews, is a licensed clinical social worker on staff who can sign off for supervision, and are supervision hours paid or unpaid. You definitely want to check in on those. You know, if your employer doesn't provide it, you may have to pay private supervision, usually 75 to 150 per session. So wherever you're getting these hours at, you know what I'm saying, you want to make sure that they got a licensed clinical social worker on deck, because you don't want to get caught paying 150 per session where you can get paid for the sessions. Next step is the exam or the exam alternative. So traditional route, you take the ASWB clinical exam, you apply, $260 fee, 150 questions, and you need 99 to pass. The topics are in human development and behavior, assessment and diagnosis, treatment planning and interventions, professional ethics and values. But there's an alternative here, and the new alternative is that Illinois now allows an alternative path to if the exam is a barrier. So you must attempt the ASWB exam at least once, complete 3,000 clinical social hours as usual, then accrue an extra 3,000 hours of supervised professional experience, broader social service work under LCSW or LCPC supervision. After that, you can apply for the licensed clinical social work without even a passing score. So you don't have to take your exam, but you got to do another 3,000 hours. Let me ask you guys, how long do y'all think 3,000 hours takes? They say the initial 3,000 hours will take 2 years. So you can get out of an exam. You just got to wait another 2 years. And 2 years of your life, just take the exam. Just take the exam. Just take the exam. So we got 3,000 right here. 3,000 divided by 52 weeks in a year. Yeah, so 3,000. So basically, 3,000 divided by 52 weeks in a year is 60 hours a week. So if you were to say, "Oh, I want to graduate and get all my hours in a year," you're going to have to work 60 hours a week. It's more realistic for you to say, "All right, I'm gonna graduate and get all my hours in a year and a half," because if you graduate and get all your hours in a year and a half, then it's 40 hours a week. So if you're working 40 hours a week, you get your licensed clinical social worker a year and a half after graduation. If you wanted to do this alternative exam route, it would take you 3 to 4 years, you know what I'm saying? So just take that exam unless if it's like a really big barrier. Next is cost and budgeting. We want to make sure we get all our ducks in line when it comes to cost. So licensed social worker application fee, $50. ASWB Matters exam, $230. You graduate, you got to throw less than $300. LCSW application fee, $50. ASWB clinical exam, $260. $310 for the stuff. So that's not too expensive. Supervision could be roughly $100 a session times 100 sessions. You could pay around $10,000 for supervision. That's pretty crazy, you know. So that's what I'm saying. Find a job with a licensed clinical social worker where you don't gotta do that. Renewal fee every 2 years is $60. Ain't nothing, you know what I'm saying. Continue education, 30 hours per renewal cycle, usually 200 to 400 worth of courses. It sounds like a lot, but remember, as a licensed clinical social worker, your income jump can easily cover these costs with the first year of licensure. Like, you can easily be making $100K a year, you know what I'm saying. And then once you go in 5 years into that, if you want to as a licensed clinical social worker, you can make 150, 200K a year. You'll know how at that point, you know what I'm saying. If you want to, you can. There's ways where you can, you know. Like a licensed clinical social worker making Illinois, entry level community mental health, you could see yourself getting 65 to 70K a year. And this is entry level. And then you can go to hospitals or integrated care, which can reach to 80 to 95K. Now, in hospitals, you're working with clients, you know, a community mental health program might work with clients with ADHD, ODD, things like that. When you're going into the hospital, you're working with more of the schizophrenia, you're working with more of the major depressive disorder, you're working with the traumas, adjustment disorder, you're working with a lot more of the heavier illnesses. So that's probably why it covers, you know, pays a little more. And then VA systems and federal jobs, 90K and up plus benefits, right? Private practice varies very widely because it really just goes how long do you want to work? Do you want to work every day of the week? You want to work weekends? You know what I'm saying? How often do you want to work? So after paneling with insurance, it's about 40 to 150 per session, with some clinicians earning 120K annually. You know what I'm saying? So you could say I go on a private practice, you got 10 sessions a day, 5 days a week. You know what I'm saying? You able to make $1,000 a day. You know what I'm saying? If you do 10 sessions a day at 150, or if you do 7 sessions a day at 150, you able to make $1,000 a day. That's a lot of money. That's up to $365K a year. You know what I'm saying? So obviously you can't average 7 sessions a day, 5 days a week. You know what I'm saying? And not burn out if you're doing other things. If mental health is the only thing you're doing, you can do that. But if you're doing other things, I don't recommend doing that. You know what I'm saying? Because I could be a lot. When 150 a day, that's when you really just say, you know what, I'm going to push my work day down a little less. Because social work is not one of those things where you could just pick up extra hours on. You have to be mentally ready for it. You feel me? So it's just one of those. Licensed clinical social workers often can open doors to supervisory roles, which can get you salaries as well, clinical directorships, and even teaching and master social work programs. So you have plenty of licensed clinical social workers who teach and master social work programs, who are my professors. You could teach online college programs. So a lot of these licensed clinical social workers are side hustlers, make a lot of money, do multiple jobs, and do multiple things. And it's just that freedom that I truly want. Just really gives me that freedom. I'm not stuck in one lane. I'm not stuck doing one thing. I can kind of just experiment, go out and do a bunch of different things. My personal timeline map. Here's what I'm personally mapping out for my licensed clinical social worker road. 2026, I'm going to be finishing up my Master of Social Work and internship. Apply for my licensed social worker right after graduation. So by next December, I'm hoping to apply for my licensed social worker. From 2026 to 2028, work full-time in community mental health under the licensed clinical social worker supervisor, log hours weekly. And then in 2028, I'll go ahead and sit for the ASWB clinical exam. And then if there's any alternative at that time, I'll probably see it. But you know what I'm saying? We got about 3 years till we're sitting for that exam. And then 2029, apply for my licensed clinical social worker, pay the fee, and start building towards private practice and supervising future master social work students. So realistically, it's about a 3-year journey post-graduation if you stay consistent, if you're at it, if you on it. You know what I'm saying? It could be a 2-year process. You know what I'm saying? But you got to be on it, and you got to be dedicated, and it's going to take some time. But at the end of the day, you went through college, and college was 4 years. So you can go through this, and time go by fast. So just learn to enjoy it day by day, because that's why I see time go by too dang fast. So quick tips to make everything easier. Join the NASW Illinois and network early, right? The NASW, National Association for Social Workers, can give you so much information and help just on everything, be able to guide you and also connect you in with resources and others that can help you. So keep a Google sheet of every supervision session with signatures. 6 months out, you want to go crazy studying for it, making sure that you getting everything you need to get done, you know what I'm saying, knowing the content, but really recommend looking at it, you know what I'm saying. Hey, I'm gonna look at the exam monthly once I graduate. Once I graduate my licensed social worker, I got 2 years to collect my supervision hours. I'm just gonna look at this exam, because if you look at the exam for 2 years and you're practicing on a monthly basis, you're going to be more prepared than if you just prepared 6 months before. You know what I'm saying? Next, invest in your own well-being. Burnout is real. Burnout comes. Burnout sneaks up on us. So you really got to make sure that you take care of yourself. Got to take care of yourself, because if you don't, nobody else will. Nobody going to step in and take care of you when you need it. So you got to be the one to step in and take care of you. So without further ado, that's the full licensed clinical social worker roadmap in Illinois. Hours, supervisions, exams, cost, and career impact. If this helped you clarify your path, drop a comment down below and let me know what's going on with your Master of Social Work journey. If you've had any questions, what are your goals with everything, how you feel about everything, hit like if this video did help you, and subscribe to Jaimon for weekly Master of Social Work updates, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Master of Social Work week 27 coming soon. Please keep pushing through the process that licensed clinical social worker is not just letters. It's the door to freedom, impact, and longevity in the field. I'll see y'all in the next one. Without further ado, we out. Jaimon, you. So I got a torn rotator cuff, so I'm not gonna be doing the full JMU, but